Great. So really good to see you all. Very warm welcome here tonight. If we've not met, my name's Arthur Siddy. I think I've met everybody. Yeah, and here we are at meditation night and looking at meditation. Surprise, surprise. But just it's also our last day of the 21-day meditation challenge. So anyone who's on the challenge, well done for getting here. We would have a finish line, but it would get messy. So yeah, and of course you don't need to finish. That's the point in a way, isn't it? Yeah, but I hope that's been really good for you. And our particular sort of theme, the theme we're exploring, is related to the challenge. On the challenge, we've been exploring this. Hi, Andy. We've been exploring this way of looking at awareness that's called the 4 levels of awareness. And actually tonight, we're going to be looking at awareness of reality. So relax, because we're in the deep end here. Yeah, so I'll just introduce that. You might be thinking, oh my God, I just came here to kind of relax and feel a bit more calm. They're hitting me with awareness of reality. But it will all tie up, I think. Yeah, so it's just looking at how do we actually look at awareness, this kind of fundamental capacity that we have as human beings. You know, actually, what is it, and what is the potential of it? How do we work with it? That's what these 4 levels can help us sort of explore. So the 4 levels are things, self, others, and reality. And sometimes they're called the dimensions of awareness. I quite like that term because it sort of suggests sort of measurement. And that's one of the things that's apparent about awareness, that we can actually measure along these different areas of things and self and others and reality. We can measure, we can get a sense of, am I more aware or am I less aware? Yeah, we can be more aware of things or less aware of things. So we can actually sort of get a tangible sense that our awareness, this capacity that we have, can actually develop, and that's fundamental to meditation. So it's helpful to sort of have these different levels, just to have a look. Am I actually getting more self-aware? Am I more aware of others? And this week we're looking at, am I more aware of reality? Yeah, so it's a big word, isn't it, reality? But what we're not talking about is some kind of metaphysic. We're not talking about some sort of theory of how things are and kind of being aware of that. We're talking about, well, actually, one of the best ways to talk about it is just point to that. That's an image that's trying to depict what awareness of reality is. And it depicts, in a way, a sort of a mental state that's the potential of any self-conscious being. And it sort of evokes a sense of poise, doesn't it? A sense of kind of peace. And that's really what we're talking about with awareness of reality. Actually, a lot of our sort of stress and strain in life is to do with being at odds with reality in various ways. Mostly that's not apparent to us, but with some hard fact like death or something, we suddenly see how our odds are sort of living, are feeling, are responding to life, to reality is. And this, the Buddha moved towards facts like death, but actually everything, with a kind of sense of poise, a sense of equanimity. He wasn't at odds with reality. So that's what we're talking about with this area of awareness of reality. So as I said, it's not a metaphysic. What actually the Buddha gave us, nonetheless, he did give us some ideas to sort of point in that direction, but it's not really an explanation. What it is it's a suggestion. Try looking at life like this. Try looking at experience like this. That's what the Buddha gave us. And the kind of key term of that is impermanence. Just try looking at life as impermanent. And the point of that is not to just go, oh yeah, things are impermanent, you know, sort of intellectual kind of tick. It's to actually see how we experience life. So in a way, it's like a doorway. That's what the Buddha is giving us with that term, that we look through so that we can actually see things as they are. That's what we're given. That's what the Buddha gave us with this awareness of reality. Yeah, he put that in. He said slightly more than impermanence. What he said, the central teaching of his, or the central way he communicated that experience is called praticca-samuppada, or conditionality. So essentially he said, look at life like this. This being, that becomes. With the arising of this, that arises. So he's saying that all experience, every moment of experience is like that. That's what he's saying. Or at least he's saying, try looking at every moment of experience, every experience like that, and see what opens up when you do that. So very, very simple idea, but it's basically just saying, look at life as process. Just look into experience, and you'll see that it's not fixed. It's kind of ever flowing, actually. Every moment of experience is kind of opening up anew, in dependence upon the conditions that it arises out of, the conditions, as it were, of the past. That's actually how he's inviting us to look at experience. So that's what we're going to do in the meditation practice. In actual fact, that is what we're doing. That is what meditation is. That's the kind of the idea that's sort of built into all of the meditation practices that we teach and practice here. So that's the invitation. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of understand sort of what is the basis of meditation, but that's the basis. In a way, a simple takeaway point here is just that awareness of reality means that included in our meditation practice is this sense that there is a possibility of a deeper perception of things. Yeah, a deeper perception than our ordinary sense of how things are. Yeah, that's kind of simple, or sort of key point to this. So we're just sort of taking that into our meditation practice, that actually it is possible to have a deeper perception into life than our ordinary everyday sort of perception. Yeah, but what we see if we look into, if we sort of measure along this axis of reality, we'll see that very often we are at odds with reality. What we're often trying to do is we're trying to resist what is arising that is unpleasant or threatening, you know, kind of, and we're trying to amplify what is pleasant and what is affirming. It's totally understandable to do that. That's not something to sort of tell yourself off about. That's natural to human consciousness. But that's what we start to find is happening when we actually look at our experience. But actually that way of relating to experience it doesn't work. At least it has an effect on the experience itself. So what I don't know how you'll get on with this, but I was thinking about custard. You know, when you make custard and you just put a little bit of liquid in and then you stir the custard powder and it goes solid. Have you had that experience? I always find that fascinating. There I am stirring it and it becomes a solid. So it's a bit like life is like that. If we sort of resist or grab, actually the experience itself changes. It ceases to be a liquid and fluid. It becomes a solid. We'll experience life as kind of pushing back in the way that the Buddha didn't. The Buddha was not at odds with reality. Was aware that everything is ever flowing, ever changing. He wasn't trying to sort of edit reality so that the good bits can last and the bad bits we can kind of get rid of. But that's what we do, and it basically solidifies our experience of the world. So we end up in this world that's rather kind of solid, and there's this person who acts like that and I want them to stop it, and I'm like this and I can't change it. We get into this very sort of solid sort of world, basically. But that's because of how we're relating to it. That's because of this grabbing after what we want to remain and resisting what's arisen that we don't want to happen. So that's going on every moment of the day in our experience, and we can see it in our meditation practice. So as I say, actually meditating is looking through this door of awareness of reality. That's what meditating is. It's looking at experience as a process, looking at our experience as a process. It's particularly noticeable in the Metta Bhavana. We're going to do the Metta Bhavana practice shortly, but it's very apparent. It's very sort of, front focus to the fore in the Metta Bhavana practice. It's there in the mindfulness of breathing as well. And as soon as we go into our experience, what will more than likely be there already is this kind of solidified take on the world. Getting a bit hot. All right, okay, great. Yeah, so as we go into our experience, we've got this kind of solidified sort of version of who I am, and the people we bring into the Metta Bhavana, who they are. They're like that, and I'm like this. We're already in that sort of solidified, we're pushing the custard. So we're in that kind of solidified world. So what I want to talk about is how we can, instead of being in that sort of solidified relationship, which is just going to mean that it makes our minds sort of unmalleable, unworkable. We can't work our minds in the Metta Bhavana. So what I want to explore is how to start doing that. And one of the ways to do this is actually to bring this attitude of kind of openness to what our experience is. So it's a bit like we've already decided, we haven't thought about it. This is an automatic process, but we've already decided, well, I'm like this and they're like that. Happens, as I say, automatically without us thinking. And the thing about that is some of it might be right. In fact, some of it probably is right. But it's not the whole story. And that's how we solidify. We go, I'm like this and they're like that. They're an awkward person and, I'm a bad person, whatever it is. And the problem is that some of that is right, but it's not the whole story. we've come to a knee-jerk, over-hasty conclusion that claims to be the whole story, but it's actually only part of the story. So this openness, this attitude of openness, is being open to what we're actually experiencing, open to there being more to our experience, more going on with me than I think is going on, than I assume is going on, and more going on with the person, the other person, more to the other person that I'm bringing into the Metabhavana too. Yeah, if we can have this, okay, well that may be true, may not be true, but that may be true, but what else? Yeah, this sort of what else, being open to what else. And what can arise out of that is that we start to see how we're building our experience. Yeah, we start to see that actually this solidified experience is actually a process that I am building. Yeah, that's what we can start to see. But we can only do that if we're prepared to sort of just stay with what we're experiencing, which might be uncomfortable. If it's the fourth stage, bringing the difficult person, we have to sort of stay with that, so that we aren't just determined by our knee-jerk, over hasty interpretations, solidifying. And if we can stay with it, then more can emerge into awareness as to what's going on in me and what's going on in them. What it can classically be is that there's something that we find threatening in that other person. That's not the way we're interpreting it. We're thinking they're like that and they really shouldn't be. But if we can stay with the experience, we can start to discover more going on, and that allows us to see that this is a process, that I have some agency in this process, and therefore we can actually start to actively nudge our experience, nudge our response towards metta. Yeah. So can you see how actually this awareness of reality is, it might sound woo-woo, sort of way out there, but actually it's totally intimate. It's this immediate experience that in all sorts of ways we oversimplify into they're like that and I'm like this, and actually close down from, and all we need to do is just sort of have this attitude of trying to open up so that we can allow more of the reality of our experience into awareness. If we can do that, then we can start to work our mind, and our experience will become much more malleable. If you as you progress in meditation, you actually end up experiencing, plenty of unpleasant and difficult mental states, but you have this openness that it can change, that actually it will change, and that actually you can be the agent of that change. That's one of the key things that you develop as a meditator, this sort of reality perspective that actually all experience is kind of flowing. It's not stuck. It's not a solid, it's a liquid. Custard is actually a liquid. Yeah. Great. So yeah, that's what we'll explore a bit. And maybe just to finish with saying metta itself, actually it kind of is this openness to reality. So metta isn't like a fluffy emotion that we kind of contrive into being. Actually, it's getting closer to the way things are, getting closer to the process that is the person before you, and that is your own experience here. That's really what metta is. It's kind of openness, a deeper openness to that, and out of that is this kind of response of empathy with another human being. Yeah, so doing the metta practice gets us closer to reality, less at odds, less kind of bracing against and resisting reality, and less sort of wishing that things were different. Great. Okay. Well, yeah. In practice, let's stay with what Shubhanaga and Amarachandra were bringing up last week. You might not be here, but the starting point of this is the body. So can we just really sensitize ourselves to the direct bodily sensations that are going on now? That's what sort of locates us in our present experience. So that's the first thing we'll do, and then we'll just have this. We'll bring this kind of reality perspective of just being open to there being more to our experience than our immediate assumption. Yeah. And see if that allows, so we'll work quite receptively, see if that allows our things to, allows more to come into awareness that's going on in our experience. And if that can then lead on to us seeing that our experience is a process that we're actually building. That's where we're sort of headed to seeing that our experience is a process. And on the basis of that, we can nudge our experience, nudge our response, our intention towards metta. Yeah. Great. Is everyone, I'll lead us through that obviously, but is everyone happy to go into that? Are there any, what on earth are we talking about? No, everyone happy? Good, great. Okay. Yeah.
So we said the theme for today is awareness of reality. So as we go through Metta Bhavana, like how do we put that theme in our heads in practice?
Oh yeah, sure.
It's different from if we change the theme as we think about the different people. Are we now intending to observe them exactly how they are in terms of characteristics, and how does that change from if we put like another theme in our head?
Yeah, good question. So essentially what it's about is it's having this this openness to the fact that our current take on our experience, our current sort of knowing of our experience is not the whole story, that there is a deeper perception, a truer perception of our experience. So that's what we're taking into the practice. That's what's sort of the focus, if you like, of the practice. Does that answer your question? Yeah, great, thanks. Great, so the sensations of the body, and then this attitude of openness to there being more to our experience, and that actually it's a process. So when you're ready, just closing your eyes. As soon as you close your eyes, notice how your attention is settling into your experience, just quite naturally, particularly the sensations of the body. So just follow that happening naturally. Let that happen. And as you do this, we can start to contact that attitude of openness to there being more to our experience. So, letting in anything we're learning about our mood, if we're feeling a bit flat or quite buoyant and bubbly. Let's just let that in just as information. Don't need to change it. And letting in anything we're learning about the sort of weather of our thoughts, how they are right now. So not getting into pushing them away, resisting them. Just let it all be as it is for now. And then let's see if we can really sensitize our awareness of the body. So feeling all those sensations of the body. With this openness to there being more to our experience to discover. More to our bodily experience. So we've already got some sort of take. Maybe it's feeling a bit tired or feeling a bit this, feeling a bit that. And that's fine. But let's not stop at that, close things down from that. Let's have an openness so that's only part of the picture. So that we can allow more of our current experience to emerge into awareness in its own time. And we do that just by feeling whatever's going on, particularly in the heart center and in the belly. Not being in any rush to find out more, just being patient and open to your current experience. And that there's more to it. And in this first stage of the metta, let's just do that with a kindly attention, this patient, sort of valuing attention of your experience. So if you can even enjoy this sense that there's more to your experience. A slight sense of adventure, perhaps. And notice, of course, any resisting or grabbing after something that's not happening, something else. See if you can just bring a kindly, patient attitude to those natural responses. And so just staying with that receptive awareness, patient awareness, if that's working. Or you might find it appropriate just to nudge your response towards metta with a phrase or reflection or image. So starting to get a sense of your chosen good friend, but keeping this awareness of, receptive awareness of your experience, really feeling what's going on. Feeling all the subtle bodily sensations, particularly in the belly and the heart center, as you get a good sense of your chosen good friend. See if you can keep in contact with this attitude of openness to there being more to your experience of yourself and your friend. And dropping any wish to sort of reflect on that discursively. Instead, just stay with the direct experience. Open to discovering more, to it emerging naturally. And if your experience is a bit of a blur, that's fine. Just stay with that. Open to it emerging more clearly. And then seeing if you can just nudge your response to them just gently towards well-wishing, metta, kindness, love. So starting to get a sense of the neutral person. Very easy to wander off in this stage. So just watching for that. And really feeling what's going on in the body, however subtle, however neutral. With this attitude of openness to there being more to discover. Openness to somehow we're an agent in this experience of the neutral person. So see if you can really feel what's going on in the heart and in the belly. Open to discovering more. About what we're feeling. and our sense of the other person. And then when it feels appropriate, just seeing if you can nudge your response, informed by your developing awareness of what's going on. And when your mind wanders off, that's fine. Just coming back to the sense of the person and feeling what's going on in the body. And now getting a strong sense of the difficult person. Sensitive to the bodily sensation as you do this. See if you can stay really close to any unpleasant sensations. Move towards them, feel them. So that we can discover more with this openness to there being more to your experience of yourself and this other person. That somehow this is a process that you're creative in. And when appropriate, nudging towards metta. And if you keep getting distracted, just starting again with real patience, kindness to your own experience. so that your awareness is on yourself and them, feeling what's going on in you. And sensing them. Now in the fifth stage, we start to bring to mind all the people so far. And with this openness, just seeing if we can loosen this solidifying of the person we like, the person we don't like, the person we doesn't matter to us. See if you can just loosen that assumption, those partial categories. So that metta can flow so really open, see if you can be open to that possibility arising, however faint, however subtle. And then with that loosened mind, less solidified mind, starting to become aware of the people in the room, and expanding out to take in more and more of the people in the world we're living with. And then just dropping the effort completely and just sitting, allowing whatever is arising to arise in your body and in your mind. Great. So we'll go for a tea break in just a little bit, but we've got just a few minutes in case there's anything arising out of that. Anything that was useful in that? Anything that was puzzling in that?
Yeah, it seemed throughout all four stages. I mean, I don't think I've ever had two sets that are identical, but at least this time it wasn't sort of so easy to kind of identify meta as it went across. But then I think on the fifth stage, yeah, it seemed to shift a little bit. I mean, it was very, very subtle, but then by the kind of towards the end of the fifth stage, it seemed to be a lot more prominent than all the other four.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not quite sure why that is.
Yeah.
I've had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if this is relevant, but one way of talking about the stages and then the fifth stage is that actually originally there was just one stage, and that was the fifth stage. You just go straight into the fifth stage, and so the previous stages, they're kind of preparatory. They're sort of trying to sort of soften up the stiffness of the mind, the sort of solidifying the rigidity of the mind. So you're sort of working. It's a bit like the gym in a way. The first, particularly the first four stages. And it's important when you get to the fifth stage to actually to relax and work slightly more subtly, because all of that working, even just bringing to mind somebody who you find unpleasant, that's quite a thing to do, isn't it? You don't want them in your mind, but that's having an effect, actually. Even if you struggle with that, it's having an effect. It's sort of, it's going against this tendency to solidify and push away that person. So that will be sort of freeing up your mind. It will all be having an effect. It's a danger in a way to get to the fifth stage and to think, oh, well, it hasn't really worked, so I'll just sort of make more effort. But actually, it will have had an effect. So there's something about just being open to something arising, something that's actually quite natural to consciousness, because it's more aligned with the reality of consciousness, of how we are, of how life is. Yeah. So it could be in that. It could be related to that sort of dynamic in the practice. Yeah. Yeah. Have you any thoughts about it?
Well, it's just the sort of, it's a bit hard to articulate really, but it seemed to be, at least in this session, that this kind of notion of there being, or sense perhaps of there being much less difference between each four people, no matter, even if you're very close with someone or someone very difficult, and then yourself. That's slightly strange, I suppose.
That was your experience in the practice. It was less of a sense of difference.
Yeah, but between them, but also between myself and them.
Yeah, interesting. And that was particularly in the fifth stage, or that was from the start?
Throughout.
Ah, right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it can take you by surprise sometimes. Sometimes I find that I love my friends more than I realised. I don't know that in everyday kind of interactions with them, but I put them in my metta bhavana, and I find that I really that there's a response that I didn't sort of quite know was there, but we're sort of too easily we assume what's going to happen in experience. And this approach of just being open actually can can just soften that assuming, and actually your experience might be different. It will be different actually from what you think it is. Yeah. It's very, very subtle, isn't it, what we're talking about? But it has a significant effect. These sort of subtle shifts in the mind have a very significant effect. Great, thanks for sharing that, Charles. That sounds significant. Any last points before we go for tea break? Do you get on all right, Rowan?
Yeah, good. I'll sort of lead on, not really my experiences, but it's just to lead on from the last point, which is in terms of noticing a difference between the 3 or 4 people, if you include yourself, and the sort of generalizability of the last stage. It's like, so this, and it's Sharon Salzberg, she's got a book on loving kindness. And then she sort of describes the interaction she had with like a guru, teacher of hers. And she's been doing this practice for like a long time in a row, just like concentrating on it. And the guru asked her like, okay, so say, you're in a forest, it's you and these 3 people, and you sort of have to sacrifice one of them to save the other.
Right.
He's like, which is the right one to choose?
Yeah.
Should it be you, or should it be the person you like? And she sort of goes away and thinks about it, and she's like, I don't know, I couldn't possibly pick between the interests of any of us. It's like,
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of, you sort of lose that tendency, or there's sort of like almost like an aim in a way to lose that tendency to be like, well, this person, because of all their merits, all their faults, should be me because I'm the one making a decision. It's like, well, how can I possibly choose? We're all after the same thing.
Yeah.
Just want to be happy with the decisions.
Yeah.
With the decisions we make.
Yeah.
That's a bit around, but
it's an important point in there, isn't there? That actually metta is just this sort of sense that people are of value. You can't really say, well, that one's more valuable than that one, in some sort of calculated way. It's just an immediate sensing that other people are of value, and somehow opening up. If we open to, we step out of our kind of assumptions and our solidified sort of version of life, that just emerges, that just opens up. So that somehow it's part of reality, actually. Closer we step to reality, metta arises, metta emerges. Yeah. It sort of confounds our ordinary calculating kind of way of approaching. Surely the person to get rid of is the nasty one. Yeah. Or me, the martyr sort of thing. But, yeah. Great. Let's go and have a cup of tea.
So we're going to continue with the theme that Artcity introduced in the first half, awareness of reality. And we're going to look at the Metta Bhavana, but I'm going to introduce a different approach to the Metta Bhavana that you've probably not done before. It's a very different type of approach to what we've been looking at so far. And this follows the reality perspective that Artcity brought in the first half, which I can summarize as custard is actually a liquid. So I thought that was a brilliant image. So all experience is a process flowing. That's what Artcity was sort of inviting us into. And this perspective, as Artcity was saying, it's inviting us into a practice. It's not a sort of intellectual idea that we need to get hold of. It's an approach to meditation. And this perspective, Buddhism would say we misread our experience. We misread this me into our experience, and we experience ourselves as separate entities. going around the world. We're sort of bumping into separate entities that we like and we dislike, as we know from the Metabhavana practice. This perspective, Buddhism would say that there's no such thing as a fixed and separate me. That's a sort of misreading. And as Arthur Siddhi was saying, a more real perspective is that we're process, and we're interacting with other processes. And so I don't know what you make of that. I don't know whether you guys are just sort of thinking, gosh, Shubhanaga and Artidi have just sort of like gone off on one here. This one here, because it sort of sounds like it sort of sounds like we're saying we don't have a self when we say this. But we are, of course, we are separate in some way. I mean, that is obvious, isn't it? We have a body and we have a mind. So I think this word process is really, really helpful. And it's like we're interconnected with other processes. So if we look at the body, our body isn't completely distinct. There's no sort of fixed boundary. If we just take the body, we rely on the world. We eat food, and then there's waste material. We breathe the air. We breathe carbon dioxide out. And even our mind is interconnected with other minds and with our environment, with our conditions. But it's hard to see. This is really deep stuff, folks. This is really, really hard to see. It's not like we need to get hold of this as an intellectual idea, but what we're being sort of invited into is to explore our experience and to discover ourselves whether this is true, whether this is true for us. So I've just got a short exercise. Actually, this is one we can close our eyes for. Just see what you make of this. I don't know whether this will work for you, but if you just close your eyes for a moment, and you can just relax. So it's as if you're going into meditation, but just really relaxed. And what I want you to do is just bring to mind yourself as a 10-year-old little person. Just really get in touch with that 10-year-old. So you might have an image there, you might have some memories coming up, and then just really feel into the body as well, the emotional experience, bringing this 10-year-old to mind. And then what I'd like you to explore and reflect on is, are you the same as that 10-year-old? You right now, are you the same as that 10-year-old? So just noticing how you're the same. And now I'd like you to just reflect on this question. Are you different to that 10-year-old? So just notice in what ways you're different. Okay, so we can bring that exercise to an end, and you can open your eyes. So what do you think? Are you the same as that 10-year-old, or are you different to that 10-year-old? Anyone care to?
Same, except for all the ways I'm different.
Yeah, does everybody agree? So there is obviously some link to that 10-year-old, isn't there? We can kind of form this link, the memory. We can feel our way into even the experience of that 10-year-old, but we're quite clearly not that 10-year-old as well. So it's a mystery, isn't it? It's just a mystery what we are. But as Artidi was saying with the kind of custard example, we tend to fix our experience, don't we? We tend to think that we're fixed and separate and therefore sort of unchanging and permanent as well. So can you see how what we're sort of saying with this reality perspective is that just can't be true with that sort of exercise with the 10-year-old. In some way, that just can't be true, can it, really? So we've got this, what we might call a sort of self-attachment, this sort of attachment to this idea that we're fixed and separate. And that is really, really deep. It's like gut level sort of instinct, this. And it's also really useful. It's sort of good enough for us to run our lives, but it breaks down. And when it breaks down where in, say, moments of crisis, if a family member falls ill or passes away, we get kind of confronted with this sort of reality that we're not permanent. Other people aren't sort of permanent. And those experiences can be, if we've got enough awareness, they can be really sort of transformative experiences. Reality enters in. We can, if we've got enough awareness, we can allow reality in. And it seems like when I think of experiences like that, it seems like I then feel more connected with the world. I can feel more sort of love for people around me. So I've just got an example. One of the great things about teaching on sort of Thursday evenings is that I can embarrass myself every week by giving sort of these personal examples. When I was in my 30s, I was made redundant, and I don't know if any of you've been made redundant, but you get kind of called up in a big group, and then you get told at the end of the week, some of you are going to go. And I remember that week, God, wasn't the custard solid that week? You know, I really had this strong sense of self. I had this, all my sort of fear, fight, flight was getting activated. The sort of self-protection was really coming in, this really strong sort of sense of me and this sort of injustice coming in. And what was quite interesting was when I was told that I was going to be made redundant, it was really, really painful. I was at the time very sort of identified with my career, my job. So it was very, very painful. But on the way home, I just sort of had this release, and I really started to experience joy. It was really, really unexpected. And I reached out to friends, and I realized I was really, really cared for in my life by my friends. My friends really cared for me. And I was able to empathize with even my bosses who just made me redundant. I felt this sort of connection. So that's a sort of example of in a way this dropping away of this sense of self that can happen in a way sort of randomly in my life. But in meditation, as Artidi was saying earlier, that's what we're doing. We're loosening this solidity. We're actively working to loosen this solidity, particularly in this awareness of reality when we practice in this way. And with this, we can have a deep, when that happens, when we start to loosen, we can have this sort of deeper sense of sort of letting go. And it seems like there's a natural arising of love and metta. So it's as if metta is the natural state when we let go of this loosening. It seems like that's the case. It seems that that is the way that it happens. So Jnanavacha, a really eminent, well-respected teacher of ours, he's got a sort of image for metta, which we're gonna try out in meditation in a moment. He talks about sort of metta as always being there. It's as if metta is always there in the world, and we get ourselves in the way. And his image for that is sunlight. So it's as if the sunlight is there streaming through sort of space. And then there's sort of clouds in the way. So the clouds are sort of representing sort of what we do to get in the way of metta. And our work is to allow the clouds to dissipate, or to actively sort of work on getting the clouds out of the way, as it were. Yeah, so an example, really easy example, might just be the fourth stage. We're there in the fourth stage. We've maybe doubting that meta is a helpful attitude to adopt, and our sort of fear and defences are maybe in the way, and we sort of miss that actually there might be something positive happening in the practice. So we're going to look at this way of working, that essentially it's a sort of faith way of working, having faith that meta is sort of intrinsic somehow to reality, and we just need to work to open up to it. We just need to open up to that sunlight. So has anybody got any questions before we go on, just on any of that? Okay. So I think this is a great way of practicing, because I think sometimes with the Metta Bhavana, we can just feel that we're just trying to sort of cultivate metta, and it's not sort of coming, isn't it? You know, we've all done that, haven't we? Oh, there's no metta. There's no metta here today. So instead of actually thinking that we have to generate this metta to kind of send out to the world, all we need to do is to be receptive and to work to open up to the metta that is already there. So opening up to the sunlight. So it's a bit like sort of settling into a warm bath. This is what Nyanavarcha says, sort of just resting back and relaxing into a warm bath. So in the practice, we'll do a 3-stage practice actually, so we get plenty of time in the meditation. We can imagine sunlight in our imagination, sort of coming into contact with sunlight. And it's as if we're just bathing in metta and seeing if we can open up to the metta. We can work like that, or we could work from the inside. We can open up to light from the body, so we can allow light to kind of radiate from the body, if that works for you. So that's what we'll do sort of in the first stage. So we're just sort of opening up, allowing metta to flow through us. And if there's not much happening, we can just be patient and really just sit with sort of curiosity and patience. And we can investigate what's going on there. It may be that we're doubting the practice. We can see what the clouds are, whether there's these sort of clouds in the way that we need to just allow to dissipate. And then in the other stages, so we'll do the second stage with the friend. It's as if we're just inviting our friend to share in that experience of metta. And then we'll do the 5th stage. So we'll do the final stage of the practice as well. And you can use your imagination. And what I suggest in the 5th stage actually is just see who comes. Don't be too tight about sort of including particular people or working too sort of systematically. Initially see who comes, and then just allow your experience to kind of flow out, expanding out. And I think, probably one thing to say is just with this way of working, we need to cultivate a sense that anything that happens in the practice is okay. So we need to bring in this non-judgmental and kindly awareness to our experience. So if there's anything difficult, or if it feels like there's not much happening, just allowing all of that to be there. And if we can bring a kindly attitude, a kindly awareness, then that already has the sort of seeds of metta in that sort of attitude. And just one final sort of option in a way. So using this sunlight sort of image, it might be too abstract for you. You might find that that's too abstract. So another way of working is we can imagine being in the presence of an enlightened being. So bringing the Buddha into our awareness, getting a sense of the Buddha's presence. So the Buddha being the central symbol in Buddhism. And you could say that the Buddha is a personification of metta. So Buddha images, they're often depicted as being made of light. They're radiating. When you visualize them in meditation, they're made of light, that they're radiating metta and the enlightened mind, the qualities of the enlightened mind. And of course, we don't have a creator God in Buddhism. The symbol also represents what we can become potentially. So that's another option. If you feel like doing that, you could try that out. You could have the Buddha there in the practice and feel into the Buddha's presence. Yeah. So has anyone got any questions on any of that? I'll lead the practice, obviously, but has anyone got anything you're wondering about? Okay. Good. Okay, so let's set up for meditation. So we'll start by feeling into bodily sensation. So just in a really simple way, just coming into the body, taking your place, feeling the weight of the body in your seat and against the floor. Just allowing your energy to settle into the body. So we'll be doing a 3-stage practice. And the essential way of practicing, the essential approach we're taking is that metta is already there. And we're just tuning in, seeing if we can find a way to open up to metta. So just relaxing into the body. Then maybe finding the breath. Using the breath to locate the belly, the chest, and then feeling into those more subtle sensations in the body. So in this first stage, metta is already there in the universe. So we can bring to mind this image of sunlight. Either above us in the sky or within in the heart. Or if it works for you, just bringing an enlightened being to mind, a Buddha, radiating. And we're just relaxing into that sunlight, relaxing into this warm bath of metta. And just notice if there's anything that's holding you back, anything in the practice, any holding on from experiencing that metta. And whatever's happening, just bringing this kindly awareness, this kindly attitude. So we're working between feeling into bodily sensation and imagining this warm, metta radiating So in the second stage, just remembering we're relaxing into a warm bath. So just cultivating this image of sunlight or a Buddha radiating metta. So the metta we yearn for is already there in the world. We just need to tune in. And then in this stage, we're inviting in a friend to share in this metta. So just allowing this metta to fall upon both of you. So see if you can resist cultivating metta. Just resting back, relaxing back. And if it doesn't feel like there's much going on, just taking a really kind approach. Just relaxing your effort, working in a more subtle way. So if we can just loosen up metta will flow into our experience. So moving into the final stage. So just relaxing back into the body. So we've got our image from metta radiating. We've got ourselves and our friend. So we're imagining and we're also staying with bodily sensation, with a kindly awareness. Just allowing anything that's there in the practice to be there. let's just see if we can open up to metta even more. Just keep loosening. The metta is already there. We just need to open up. And maybe you're finding you run off track, get distracted. Just keep coming back, keep opening, keep relaxing into that warm bath. And then just allowing other people to come into the practice. So you might start with people you've met this evening and people you've met during the day. Just taking your time and just allowing more and more people to arise in the mind, sharing in this experience of metta. And see if you can allow your awareness to extend tuning into this expansive quality that metta has. And just allowing this image of metta to fade, to dissolve. Staying with your experience. Relaxing your effort. Noticing how the mind feels. And then in a few moments, I'll ring a bell, and that will conclude this evening's practice. So take your time to come out of meditation when I ring the bell.